Hello, you're listening to Raw 12:51am. It's Eddie and I'm here at the Warwick Arts Centre and I'm delighted to be joined by some of the actors starring in the current production here, French Without Tears. I'm delighted to be joined by Florence Roberts, who plays the character Diana, and David Whitworth, who played Monsieur Mango.
Mango, yes.
Welcome, both of you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We've just seen the performance. Brilliant. And just want to start off. Probably been asked this question many times, but could you just give the audience, who obviously won't have seen the play, most likely, a brief synopsis and outline of the play and outline what your role is in the character?
So it follows a group of boys who are cramming for their diplomatic exam. It's set in the 1930s, and they are being taught by the wonderful Monsieur Mango. And they are disrupted by the arrival of one of the boys' sisters, who comes and visits and comes to stay, and she's a bit of a minx. She wraps them around her little finger, basically.
Causes mayhem,
complete mayhem. Plays them all against each other, and chaos ensues.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
And lots of laughs.
Now, I'm really intrigued. I suppose what drew you to this play, because Terence Rattigan, I must admit, I probably should admit this, but I hadn't actually really heard of him before coming to see this play and researching a bit about it. I'd argue he's not particularly well known in the same way as someone, say, like Noel Coward is. And I'm interested, what drew you in particular to this play and his work?
Well, he was extremely famous in his day, and his plays were done all over the place. And this play, French Without Tears, was a staple of the old rep company system. Every theatre would do this play at some point, probably more than once. And then his plays fell out of fashion, really, with the emergence of the Royal Court stuff. John Osborne, Look Back in Anger, in the late 50s. And so the kind of well-made middle-class kind of plays like that he represents, they became unfashionable, and working-class kitchen sink drama became the thing to go to and the thing to do. But actually, there's been a real resurgence in his work in the last few years. The National Theatre have done After the Dance and Deep Blue Sea very recently. There was a tour of Flare Path that I went to see a few months ago. So his plays have been rediscovered, and people have found that they are wonderfully well-made pieces of theatre. And so they've been neglected for... This always happens, though. Writers go in and out of fashion. But luckily, we're on the... we're back with Rattigan and the very well-made, well-crafted plays that he wrote.
Well, it's interesting, you mentioned there how Rattigan's plays kind of fell out of fashion in favour of more like kitchen sink realism. I was discussing with Gina, it's very much a play of its time, I think, French Without Tears, especially when you look at the relationship between men and women and the kind of dichotomy between the two of them. I'd like to pose to you, do you think modern audiences would class this as a sexist play? Because, and would you personally consider it a sexist play? You might think audiences do, and you might disagree with them. Yeah,
I do disagree. I think it has been, people have said they think there's misogyny in it. I disagree. Playing as one of the female parts in it, I think actually Rattigan is doing a very clever thing in making fun of the men. And he's exposing this sort of classic British buttoned up, won't show your feelings kind of thing. And Diana comes across as incredibly, I think, clever, and she's aware of all that. She's a woman in a man's world. She knows her place in it. She knows how to deal with that. And I think, that's why I would disagree with some people.
A friend of mine came to see it at another venue, not here. And she's a teacher, she's now retired. And she said her blood was boiling for the first few minutes because she thought, oh my goodness, what have I come to with this kind of dated language and this dated attitudes to women? And she was completely won over by the end of the play. So I think it has that effect on people. People are not quite sure. And what are we looking at? Is it a museum piece? And then you realise there are universal truths in this play, and that the relationships between the characters are funny and touching and truthful, and there's some it is a comedy and it is a kind of a farce, but because he was a great writer, there's a lot of depth in the play as well, and there are a lot of themes and ideas hinted at in his first play. It was a big success for him in 1935, that he then returned to and developed in more serious work later on. But I wish he'd written more. I wish he'd written more comedies, because it's such a wonderful piece to play.
I was going to ask, it is a very kind of light and frothy, enjoyable play. I think you've mentioned it has got some depth to it as well, but I think on the surface it is this very enjoyable comedy, looking at the relationship between men and women. And I wanted to ask you, as actors, is this a deliberate choice to pursue a comedy role? Because I actually read an interview with you, Florence, earlier today, where it mentioned your previous production was very different to this, very dramatic and intense role. Yeah. And I wondered, as actors, do you, after taking on such a heavy, hard-hitting role, do you purposely then look for your next role to go somewhere a little more
wish
light?
We could.
Yeah, you don't really have that much choice. Weirdly enough, I'm going back to that role that I did before this. Wow. It's transferring, and it's really nice actually to know that I'm to sort of chop and change, and I think I'm sort of gagging for a serious part again now.
Well, I did a Tennessee Williams play just before this, which was extremely grueling and difficult and experimental in its time. And it was a very difficult play to get hold of, and we had to work so hard in rehearsal. And playing it was exhausting every night, and it was wonderful to do. But this is such a contrast, and that's actually what I like about acting, that you've got the opportunity, if you're lucky and you get the work, to do lots of different kinds of plays and to explore different kinds of people. And that, for me, is the attraction of acting. That's what I like most about it. So just the opportunity. But you don't, as Floss said, you don't often get the chance to choose what you're doing. I mean, you go for the work and you go to meetings, you go to auditions and hope you'll get the job. The actor doesn't have a lot of control over the direction of their career, unless, if you become a very established star, then you probably do have choices of projects, but the rest of us don't. Most of us don't. You just go where the work is.
Fair enough. There actually was a film adaptation of this play released in 1939, and I just wondered, do you find, it varies from actor to actor I suppose, but do you find you try to stay away from watching other people's interpretations of the material before taking it on yourself, or is this something that you actively look at when you rehearse and research the role? Where do you stand?
It's tricky. I haven't seen that film and I haven't sort of sorted out or anything. I'm not fussed really. Weirdly, so there was another cast before us doing this at the Orange Tree last year, and I went to see it having no idea that I would ever be involved in it. And the girl playing my part, I adored the way she did it, and therefore I could not get it out of my head in rehearsals. It was really difficult to shake her off, but I eventually did. But it was, I think it's preferable to have a clean slate.
Well, you're certainly so very different from the way she played it, and it's absolutely brilliant what you've done. Well, both performances were good in different ways, and that's another thing that illustrates that there's no one way of playing a part. Obviously, you're bound by what the writer's written and so on. But every role is open to different kinds of interpretation. I personally would never go and see something if I knew I was about to do it, because with the best will in the world, you're going to get some inflection stuck in your head. And you don't want to be imitating somebody else. You want to be creating the part that is true to you, what you can bring to a role. And it would be very difficult, I think, if you'd just seen something.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I think it does vary from actor to actor, but it's really interesting. Finally, the tour is running up until the 19th of November, I believe, finishing in Huddersfield. So after you finish this, I think, Florence, you already mentioned your previous plays transferring, but what's next for each of you and what do you have coming up?
Well, I have to drive from Huddersfield, which is our last date on this tour, down to Aylesbury, where I'm going to do Aladdin. I'm not playing Aladdin, I'm playing the Emperor of China. So it couldn't be more different. Again, to go back to your earlier question, the variety is really what I seek as an actor. And again, I have slight misgivings about it. Should I be doing this? I did Aladdin last year. Should I be doing it again? But you go, because it's a job, and you know that you're going to be paid for it, and that you can do something with it. And it's better to be working than not working. And pantomime is a completely different ball game from this. And you're working with a lot of people who aren't really actors in pantomime. It's a completely different kind of thing. And I find that's quite refreshing for me. So I'm telling myself I'm looking forward to doing that. But actually, after a long tour, and we did this play at the Orange Tree for 4 weeks before we came on tour. I started with it this time last year, or in October last year. So it's been with me a long time. I shall be sorry to say goodbye to it. But, onward and upward.
And no pantomime for you, Florence?
No panto, more sort of... It's sort of gut-wrenching. No, it's not that bad. It's a lovely play. It's transferring to Trafalgar Studios in London. And it's, far more serious than this one. It's not. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, thank you both very much for taking the time to talk to us, especially just after coming off stage. You must be very tired and looking forward to going to drink for a drink and to bed. So French Without Tears is on here at the Warwick Arts Centre until this Saturday. Tickets are available from their website or from the box office. Thank you again and good luck with the rest of the tour.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.